Hey folks, I'm Dave. I want to thank you for being here. So we're going to make a pair of standing witch legs. We're going to do it from scratch, and we're going to start with text rather than drawing shapes. And you'll be able to alter this and make all sorts of Halloween projects with it. So we're going to grab the text tool. We're using Calibri font, which is pretty common. And I'm going to just type out a lowercase r. And you can see already it looks like a boot. I'm going to use the comma key to rotate counterclockwise. We're just going to stretch this out a little bit. We're not going to size it yet. And of course, you'll be able to resize this and make it into whatever your project calls for. So with it selected, we're going to go over to Tools and down to Deform Selection 16 points. And then we're just going to stretch it around, make it look a little non-standard, more like whatever you think a witch's boot would look like, do that. And once you've stretched it a little bit, you can click your selector tool, select it again, go back to Tools, back to Deform, and you can stretch it some more if needed. For whatever reason you need to do it. All right, so we'll just go with that for now. Click the selector tool. Now we need to put a pointy toe on it. To do that, we're going to go back to text. We're going to type a lowercase s in Calibri. Click the selector tool. I'm just going to stretch it out and then we will resize it to what we need. So I'm going to grab and move it out of the way a little bit. This is an easy way to get some of your shapes. So if you'll consider using text, you can, and different fonts, you can find all sorts of things you can do. So I'm going to grab a square, just draw out a rectangle, and we're going to cut off part of this S. Click your selector tool, select your S, shift, select your rectangle, and then you could subtract right here, or you can go up to Tools and Boolean Assistant, subtract A from B, select, and click OK. So now we have this piece to put on the tip to make it pointy. And we need to move it around, so I'm going to use Control, Shift, and V to flip it up. And that's a shortcut for, if you go to Arrange, that's a vertical flip. Now if I can get a hold of it, I'll pull it over here and resize it. And you can get in close. And since version 1.6, when you start to snap, you can get right on the edge, select it, and then hold down the Alt key. And you'll see those guidelines pop up. And you can snap it in just the right spot. Just like that. Really helpful. And that is a little too pointy, so I'm going to select it. I'm going to go to Tools and Deform. Now, once you get something like this created that you think you'll use over and over, you should put it into a art library so you won't have to try to create this thing over and over, because sometimes they don't always work out right. So I think we'll go with that. I'm going to pull this up a little bit so it'll match the bottom of the boot. That is close enough. I'm going to click the selector tool, select everything. This would actually be a union because it's two shapes. So here's union. It's also up in the Boolean Assistant, but you can also weld because weld is for multiple shapes. And there we go. So now we have a witch's boot. But when you set it down, you want it to be square or flush with the top of the table or counter or whatever you're setting it on. So we're going to grab another square. We're going to draw out a rectangle. Click the selector tool. Then we're going to get in close. And we're going to snap it to the bottom of the shoe. I guess I should be pushing the Alt key since I mentioned it. And there we go. And then we're going to just cut this off so it will be square. So we'll select the boot, shift, select the square or the rectangle, and then we can click subtract. So now we know when we set it on the table, it'll be flat and it won't be rocking over. Because once you put this together, you'll be able to set a Halloween candy bowl on it or whatever else you want to set on it. I'm going to cut this out of 5mm Luan plywood, which is a really good project product. You can pick it up at your local hardware. So let's grab a square and we're just going to draw out a rectangle for her legs. Click the selector tool. I'm going to pull it over and stick it in. We're not going to weld these together yet because we want to, once we get this made, we'll pull off a copy of the boot after we resize it, and then we'll put some buttons on it and make it a little more witch-like. So let's see what the overall size is now. I'm going to switch this millimeters to inches, and I'm going to make the width about 6 inches and the height we'll do 8 inches. There we go. And that looks pretty good. So at this point we can get a copy of the boot. I'm going to Control D, select it and Control D and pull it out and just leave it sitting there. On the leg, we want to make it look like there's stockings. So we're going to draw out a line. So when you draw a straight line, or to get a straight line, click your pencil tool, get where you want to start, hold down your left mouse button, push down the shift key, release the mouse, and then you can just pull out a straight line. You can do diagonal or vertical, either one. But just want to draw it out to the edge, left click, right click your mouse, and then release shift. And you have a perfect straight line. Now, we're going to select it. We're going to go over to the array tool. And I'm going to cancel real quick, and I'm going to switch this back to millimeters so I don't confuse myself. So with our line selected, we're going to click this array tool. We'll leave the spacing at about 10 millimeters. And then we'll just go up on the Y rows. We will give this witch some stockings. And we're going to grab these, and we're going to, they're already grouped together, which is good. So I'm just going to pull them out, put them on a engraved layer. When you do that, though, move your engraving up to the top above your cut line so you don't make a mess. And the reason I'm pulling it out is we still need to weld these together, and if you have an engraving included, it'll take on the engraved setting. So now we can select this, and we can just either union or weld, either one. Now I'm just going to move this one out of the way. I know I'm rambling, folks, but when you're doing stuff like this, sometimes you just have to, you really just have to think it through. And like I said, you'll never do two the same if you freehand. So we're going to get a copy of this, Control D. We're going to pull it out. We know it has to be facing the opposite direction. So we're going to do Control, Shift, and H. H for horizontal, and that is a shortcut for going to arrange and flipping horizontal. All right, so now we have two boots. But to get these to stand, we have to put a slot, sorry for the whistle, we have to put a slot in one and a tab on the other. So we've got to flatten out part of this on the back. So we're going to grab a square and we're just going to draw out a rectangle right here. Take it to there. We're just trying to fill that in a little bit to have somewhere to connect this. I'm going to click the selector tool and then click the cut line. I'm going to grab this and pull it out to the edge. We want to cover up this little pointy edge. Like so. And since it's hanging down, I'll hit the radius button and then get rid of that corner. And I had that set for 10 millimeters. So we want to weld this in. So once you get it set where you want it, you can grab the edge of it and just drag it in so you're sure that you get a good solid weld. You got to select both of them to do it. Like so. And I should have put that same square over here on this side. So I'm going to Control Z and back up. Get a copy of that. Control D. Pull it out. And then Control Shift H to turn it around. Then select both of these. Weld them back. And then take this one and put it in a position. Like so. And that should work fine. Select. Now I could have just copied this one again and flipped it, but since the way I'm doing the tab was an afterthought, that, you know, that's just the way it goes when you're doing this, and I think we'll be okay. All right, so now we can put a slot here and a tab here. So let's grab another square. We're just going to draw out a slot. Click the selector tool. I'm using 5 millimeter plywood. So I'm going to make this about 4.8 for a width. So make sure your lock is off. I'm pointing at the screen for you folks. So make this about 4.8. That'll give you a good tight fit. And then we will make it about 15 millimeter in height. It started raining, folks, so I'm sorry for the noise if there's any background noise. I'm going to scroll in close. Remember, you can scroll in and out with your mouse wheel. You can push down and move the entire canvas around. So I'm just going to grab this and put it over here. And as long as we make sure we're somewhere toward the edge, and if we wanted to know how much space that was right here to make sure it wasn't too thin, you can go over and grab the ruler, and then you'll get a pop-up, and of course it's on another screen. You'll get a pop-up, and you can get your measurements here. You can click and drag to the edge. So that is 2 millimeters. So I think I'll move it over a little bit more. And to move it over a little bit more, I can select it and push the left arrow key. And that took it a little too far. So I will bring it back. And that looks pretty good. And now we will copy this, Control D. I'm going to bring it over here, but then we're going to check and get this in the right spot. I'm going to grab the edge and snap it to here, but then we'll move it after we line it up. So with this one, we're going to select both the slot and the boot, and we're just going to click, not that, I'm pushing Control Z to go back, and I'm going to push weld. And there we go. So that locks everything together. Make a lot of mistakes, folks. A lot of mistakes. So now I'm just going to line the boot up, line them up with each other. And you can do that by getting any of these areas that are the same, like right here at the top, right there. So now we know that our tab has to be selected and moved even with that other slot right there. And once you get it in the perfect place, you can grab the edge of it and pull it over into the boot or whatever you happen to be working on. And then when you select, be sure to select the boot in a spot that it's not going to select anything else. Shift and then select the tab you were just working with, and now you have it in just the right spot. You can go over and hit weld, and you know that when you put it together it's going to hold together. Now we can grab our leggings and put those on. Let me scroll back in a little bit. Control D to get a copy. And we'll pull it over to the other side. And now we will get the boot, because we're going to put some buttons on it, and then it'll be able to go right over it. So we'll just grab a circle, ellipse, hold shift, draw out a little button, click the selector tool, put it on an engraved layer, and Control D to duplicate. Pull another one out, and you could do array also, but when you're only doing 2 or 3 of these, it's really just as easy to grab them and pull them out. And we're going to put buttons toward the front of the boot like that. Then we will group that together. You can group up top, or you can right click and group here. So now we will duplicate this, Control D, pull it out, and now we have to mirror it again. So we select that, and we can do Control Shift and not that. Control Z will take us back. We want Control Shift H. I told you folks, a bunch of mistakes, but that's okay. So this is our witch's legs, and you can alter this in a lot of ways. I mean, I made my wife one recently that has tabs on top, and then it has a 8 or 10 inch cutout that sets on top, and it sets on the tabs, and of course the tab in the back. But it's quite difficult to get those tabs lined up into the circle. I've done it, but it's not very easy, so it'd make this video run an hour to finish that out. But now I think we're ready to cut. So I'm using a 40 watt XTOOL D1 Pro, and I have my cut set for, should be 560. I had it for some reason on 1080. I did clean the laser this morning, so it is cutting quite a bit better than it was yesterday. So speed of 5, power of 60, and I think we are good to go. So I will jump in the laser, we'll cut this out, and we'll see what they look like. I'll be right back, folks. Okay, folks, I believe we are framed up and ready to go. So we will send the code over, cut this out, and see what it looks like. So here's our finished witch legs. I think they turned out really nice. I did have to shave the tips off of this one a little bit, sanded them down so they would fit better. But other than that, it turned out really well. In creating this, you've created an original vector, so you can save it, put it in your art library, and use it however you see fit. Let me see if I can get the one I made my wife that I mentioned. I made this one with a pedestal. I hope that's showing up good. So putting that pedestal on it, you could do that. Like I said, lining those slots up, figuring that out. Took a little while. I got there. I just didn't save it. So I put a little leg on the back to give it a little more, make it a little more stable for setting a candy bowl or whatever on. But just use your imagination, and you can use these in a lot of different ways, and you will be the envy of your neighborhood come Halloween. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please like and subscribe. It not only helps the channel grow, but it will help me to keep doing this and be able to bring you more and better content in the future. And if you've got questions about it, just let me know. The questions and comments from the viewers help me out as a newbie, and they help all the people that come across them. So I really appreciate it. So just check back often for new videos. You folks take care, and we'll see y'all next time. Thank you.